Hello out there, everybody. Welcome back to Rule of Two Review. It is so awesome to see your faces after a week off where, of course, most of you probably know, I was visiting Orlando, Florida, attending Star Wars Celebration. I discussed it on the video that I posted earlier today. It was so fantastic, but man, I didn't get to talk about video games or Nintendo or any of that stuff in a long time. So it feels really great to be back home. As much as it's sad to be back home, it feels great to be back home and great to be talking about Nintendo again. So there's actually quite a bit of news I missed surrounding Nintendo and the Nintendo Switch and all things Nintendo over this last week while we were, of course, on vacation, attending Star Wars Celebration. And, of course, that happens when I'm not home and able to make videos on a regular basis, but that's how the chips fell. At least I'm back now so I can discuss this. There are two stories in this video that I want to discuss. One main one, and I'm going to discuss another thing near the end a little bit as well. So I'm going to kind of try to do the best I can to catch up on what's going on and discuss what's happening. The first thing I want to touch on, actually quite a few people even mentioned they wanted to hear me discuss this, is what's happening with the NES Classic Edition or the NES Mini, which Nintendo has recently just confirmed that they are going to be discontinuing. It just launched in November 2016, and now by the end of April, they're going to be completely done, which is really crazy. I think, we haven't really heard about it in the news since the Switch launched, but no one really saw this coming because I think we all knew and understood that it was selling so well, and it was obviously making Nintendo a lot of money, and it was a very popular product. It's a very well-reviewed product. I mean, the quality of it is supposed to be pretty fantastic. I do not have one. I couldn't find one that first couple of days, and so I pretty much just gave up on it. I was like, whatever. Like, it's really great. I'd love to have one, but I don't really care. I'm not gonna kick myself in the ass to try to drive around or call around and find one. I sure as hell ain't buying a scalped one for more than $59.99 online anywhere. And, we all had that collective shock when it's like, wow, they're discontinuing this after, like, exactly 6 months on the market. And with it being so popular, why would they do this? So before I discuss my feelings on why I think Nintendo might be doing this and what may happen with this moving forward, I'm going to read to you first the official quote from a Nintendo of America representative about them discontinuing the NES Classic. Throughout April, Nintendo of America territories will receive the last shipments of Nintendo Entertainment System NES Classic Edition systems for this year. We encourage anyone interested in obtaining this system to check with retail outlets regarding availability. We understand that it has been difficult for many consumers to find a system, and for that, we apologize. We have paid close attention to the consumer feedback, and we greatly appreciate the incredible level of consumer interest and support for this product. They then go on to say, NES Classic Edition wasn't intended to be an ongoing long-term product. However, due to high demand, we did add extra shipments to our original plans. Now, this was, of course, all told to IGN, as you can even see per that last quote there. And this is pretty interesting. It kind of gives us a lot of insight into maybe what they planned to do with the NES Classic, what they're doing with it currently with its cancellation, and maybe even what they might be doing going forward. And that's kind of all what I wanted to discuss. So at the end of the day, a lot of people are discussing, is this a good thing? Is this a bad thing? Is this a smart move? Is this a bad move? I said this in a video recently, we're all just armchair businessmen and women. We're all just armchair analysts who have no real credentials, just discussing what companies should and shouldn't do and what's good and bad. And I'm part of that. I do that all the time as well, usually about Nintendo, who I love, of course. And, I think that this is something where I don't think it's that big of a deal initially, you guys. Ultimately, I think that they probably should just continue to make this product because it is selling so well. But I think that discontinuing it at this point is probably completely fine. And it's really that last statement that they said was one of the first things I thought of when I first heard this news while we were on vacation and before I even looked into these quotes. When I just saw the headlines and the YouTube videos coming out and everyone's saying, oh, this is what happened. Nintendo's discontinued it. It's done by the end of April and that's it. And then I saw that last quote and it's like, I really realized that this was probably just not meant to be a long-term product. When you think about it, we're so used to hearing the term limited edition and special edition, whether it's like a movie, like a Blu-ray, or a game, or a collector's version of a game, or whatever. And we're so used to hearing those terms, but I think that in the culture, like the nerd and pop culture that we live in today, people have kind of forgotten what that is supposed to really mean and what the definition of those terms are. And the definition really says they are supposed to be of limited quantity. There's not supposed to be an unlimited, easy-to-find amount of these products available per their definition. And the reason I think we've all sort of forgotten that is because, to be fair, both the movie and gaming industry really haven't done a good job of actually delivering on the promise of those terms and those phrases, because you can find as many collectors or limited or special editions of anything you want, usually, wherever you go. Like, they're never hard to find. What Nintendo's doing here is kind of saying, this is really what this is supposed to mean. I mean, okay, the limited or collector's edition isn't actually a part of the title of the Classic Edition, to be fair. So I acknowledge that Nintendo never really referred to it that way. But when I hear that quote that they said at the end, and when I see them canceling this now only 6 months after it launched, it made me realize that even though they didn't label it as such, I think that was always their plan. This is supposed to be a small product with a limited run that makes it harder for people to find, and then it's supposed to be that thing that becomes very special if you have one. If you were lucky enough to find one, and if you have it in your collection, you've got something rare that not many people could get their hands on. And that makes it cool and special. And, you know, since we all kind of live and thrive in this world of collectors and special editions, whether they're named that way or not, Nintendo, I think it's really cool to see someone actually trying to deliver on that promise. It's too bad it wasn't actually part of the title, because it probably could have cleared up some of this. But that's what I think is going on. And so to that end, that's why it doesn't really bother me too much, because it's like it's about time somebody did something with that idea. Now here's the thing. Going back to the other end of this angle is because it had been selling so well, and Nintendo was already killing it in terms of marketing and sales and probably profit and revenue with the Nintendo Switch, and word of mouth and consumer interest of Nintendo as a brand name, like its recognition is becoming stronger. Why wouldn't they continue to have available this product that's selling so well and continue to sell this product that's probably making them a lot of money? Well, I do think, that's why I said, you know, a couple minutes ago, I do think they probably should continue to sell it. Maybe forget the whole limited edition idea, since you didn't label it that way anyway. Just keep making it and make people happy and get them in their hands. That's probably the ultimate best thing that they could do. And if I could pick, that's what they would continue to do. But they're not, and I think the reason is twofold. What I think is probably going to happen, well, not probably, what I think is maybe going to happen is that they're going to have another run of this come out sometime after the new year, like in 2018, maybe in the first half or something, maybe by E3 next year. Because if you paid attention to the first part of the quote, that person from Nintendo said, you know, we're done with, at the end of April, we're going to be done with our shipments for this year. And I haven't really seen anyone bring up the fact that that person reflected this year as the time frame for the discontinuation. Maybe what they're doing is just giving a temporary halt now that the Switch has been out for a month and a half. Everyone's loving it. Everyone's buying it. They're selling it like crazy. Nintendo's doing wonderful. Their games are going to continue to sell great. Zelda's blowing everyone's mind. It's like maybe we're kind of cannibalizing too much of the Switch thing. Maybe we can just ride the Switch thing out for now. Let's not, you know, segregate and dissect our audience into the Switch and the NES Classic and hope that they overlap, even though they obviously were overlapping. I think that their thought was to do that. We'll pull it away for now. Next year, we'll bring it back, and it'll be an even bigger deal because people will be like, oh my god, after a year, I can buy this thing again. I never got it last year. Now I can get it because Nintendo's putting it back out there, and that's really fantastic. So I think that that's part of what they're doing. The other thing I think they might be doing that's important to consider is they might be seeing the NES Classic as potential competition to their Virtual Console for the Switch, which we know they're about to launch their third iteration of the Virtual Console. Started on the Wii, went to the Wii U. We know it's coming to the Switch. They've already confirmed it's going to exist. We don't know too much about it yet, other than it's going to happen. And so what they're probably thinking as well is, why not remove this, which has 30 of our best games, 30 of the games that so many people would probably be very excited to buy once we launch our Switch Virtual Console. Let's not have this existing on the same time so that they don't cannibalize each other and become part of the same market. Let's make it so folks have to pay attention to the Switch Virtual Console and buy some of these games that way. It's kind of a crummy, undermined business move to a degree, but it also makes sense, and I think it's pseudo-harmless because these games are only going to be like $4 or $5 a piece for the NES versions, and no one's going to buy all 30 of them individually. So I don't think there's too much damage being done there. It's not really ideal, but it is what it is. I think that that's what they're doing. They probably could still continue to get away with selling them both right alongside of each other, so maybe if this is true, they might be overthinking it. But it does still become logic that I personally can follow, and so I get what they might be thinking there if they're like, let's not have them together, because once this launches, they probably want no competition for it initially. But if they wanted to bring the NES Classic back next year, like my theory suggests, at this point, it would be 7 or 8 months after the Switch's Virtual Console. They'd probably have NES and Super NES and 64. Hopefully they got the Genesis and TurboGrafx stuff coming, and and it could have been around for so long that it's already like settled into our consciousness. People know that this stuff exists. They've been buying it on the Virtual Console for months at that time. So re-releasing the NES Classic might not really eat into the Virtual Console hype anymore. I think they want the hype of the launch of the Virtual Console to be unhindered by any other Nintendo products. And so, you know, that kind of makes sense. The last thing to note here, and what I also think is going to be happening, my last prediction for this whole topic, is that I really feel like Nintendo's also learned, you know what, we would be absolutely stupid and kicking ourselves if we didn't dive further into this idea and make what we all want to see them make, a Super Nintendo Classic Mini. And they're going to do that, you guys. They're going to do that. The fact that they're looking so intently at this product, making a decision to discontinue it, I believe personally they're also going to make the decision to bring it back, make sure that it's not, you know, eating into certain parts of their business as they release this product versus this product. I think it means that they realize how much of a market there is for a product like this and how successful they can be, and they have a lot. There's so much in the pantheon and the history of Nintendo that they can continue to do and release on products like this. Why the hell wouldn't they? So I think we can all expect a Super Nintendo Classic Mini. Will it be holiday 2018? Maybe. I think it's entirely possible that it comes out maybe even 2019. They might want to give more time for this NES Classic to breathe and the Virtual Console for the Switch and stuff to breathe. So, you know, all just theories of mine, but I feel pretty good about, you know, a lot of what's going on here and what I've laid out. I think that we can expect the Super Nintendo Classic at some point in the next handful of years, maybe next year, maybe beyond. And I think the NES Classic is going to come back. They probably just want to get the Virtual Console out. They want to remind people this was supposed to be a small, limited run of these things and just kind of let it be what it is. And so to me, it's kind of dumb, but it's also just totally fine. And last thing, let's touch on one more quick detail and story that happened, again, while we were out on vacation doing all the crazy, awesome Star Wars stuff. It was apparently almost basically confirmed, not directly from Nintendo themselves, but from a third-party researcher and analyst, that apparently the Nintendo Switch in its first month or so on the market has sold over 2 million units total. I think around 2.4 million units is the rough estimate right now. And that is spectacular, you guys. I think within that first month, I don't know if it was worldwide or just in the US, it was like 900,000. And, you know, very quickly we heard reports that they shipped 1.5 million. And now here we are a month and a half in, and it's like, hey, 2.4 million units, almost 2.5 million units sold. Not just shipped, because I think initially they wanted to either sell or ship 2 million units for the launch. And now with however many other shipments that they've been getting out to people after the initial launch shipments of the Switch, they have officially gotten into people's homes 2.4 million, or somewhere in that ballpark number. Even if it's 2 million or above, that's incredible, you guys. And the poor Wii U, man, I loved it so much, but it just didn't have this kind of momentum in sales and buzz and popularity. It's really nice to see, as I say all the time, it's so nice to see Nintendo being successful and to see people receiving and responding to them so well and loving Nintendo again and loving their current newest product, and everyone feels great about it. It is up to Nintendo to continue this momentum. It is up to Nintendo to deliver on the promise of the Switch and to deliver on the library. Let's get these third-party games on board the right way. We're starting to see signs of some third-party multi-platforms not making it to the Switch. I think that's potentially a very big and scary problem. We can have all the indie games in the world we want, and that's fine, and it's a good thing, and I even am interested in a couple of them, but that's not really going to make or break the Switch, I don't think. I think it's going to be their consistent first-party lineup, and if they can hit just a couple, even just like 3 or 4 a year, reasonably high-profile third-party multi-platform games. You know, not just indie games, as great as that is, and that's a great way to help support the Switch. We need some of the bigger stuff as well. So it would be great to see something like a Battlefront 2. I always bring up Red Dead Redemption 2, a game I don't even care about, but that I would love to see show up on the Switch. If, I don't know, Dead Space 4 shows up, maybe we start seeing Madden and stuff happening, all these different things. You know, we know that we're getting FIFA, we're getting Dragon Ball Xenoverse 2, we're getting Steep, we're getting Skyrim, some great ones. But let's get some of the newer ones. Resident Evil, Final Fantasy. If we can get a couple of those a year, Kingdom Hearts 3, I think we're going to be in really great shape. Oh, Dragon Quest 11's a big one coming as well. You know, if Nintendo does those things, I think that they'll continue the momentum of the Switch. And I think that's definitely going to continue throughout this year. And I think now they're, you know, reports between 7 to 10 million sold by the end of 2017. All guesses, of course. And those are pretty high numbers, man, when you consider the Wii U at 14 million in its entire life. To think that it, you know, the Switch could sell more than half of that within its first year, within its first less than year, that could be really huge. And it's great to see Nintendo doing this. So you got to keep it up, Nintendo. Mario Kart's going to help. ARMS is going to help. Splatoon's going to help. Obviously, Mario Odyssey is going to be insane. I'm banking on Xenoblade 2 still being a 2017 title, which it was recently reconfirmed to be so. Fingers crossed that still doesn't change, because I'm not going to lie. I'm going to worry about that game until it's in my hand. No lie. But that's what's going on, man. The NES Classic getting discontinued, but I think it's coming back sometime next year. And the Switch selling over 2 million units in its first several weeks on the market. Such an awesome thing to see. What a great time it is for Nintendo, and what a great time it is to be a Nintendo fan and just a gamer. When Nintendo's doing well, it's great for gaming. Just like that's true with pretty much every company, but I think kind of especially Nintendo because of how they influence everyone in different ways, and they're always trying something new and quirky and wacky, and sometimes they succeed, sometimes they don't succeed. Right now, they seem to be knocking it out of the park, and man, it feels good. And it also feels really great to be back here talking about video games and Nintendo to you guys. I still got Star Wars on the brain. It was almost hard for me to get back into the, Nintendo brain a little bit, because I haven't been thinking about Nintendo. In fact, I'm still thinking about Star Wars. Here's a whole bunch of my Star Wars swag just sitting here. I want to leave it here for at least a week or so for some of the videos. I just want to eat up everything, but, you know, Nintendo's doing great stuff. Really fun to talk about it with you guys again. So tell me what you think about these two stories, the NES Classic, what's going on there, do you think? And how about these awesome sales of the Switch? Is it going to continue? Will Nintendo make this thing the true hit long-term that we all want it to be? Tell me what you guys think. Thanks so much for your patience as I was on vacation for a while. And of course, thanks for tuning in. This is Rob of Rule of Two Review, and I will catch you guys next time on another video.